What if death was actually your birth? What if the life you believe you're living is your tomb? This is not just a philosophical question, it's a challenge to the very core of your reality, and it demands a complete rethink of everything you thought you knew. We've all been told that death is an end, a finality, but what if it's simply a transition? What if it's the ultimate wake-up call? The truth is, the reality you experience is a construct, a kind of simulation, and death isn't an ending, but rather the moment you recognize the true nature of the game. This isn't just some abstract concept, it's a very practical understanding that can completely transform your life, and it is the central idea of this video. Think of it like the Matrix. You're living in a programmed reality, and that death, in this context, is the moment you swallow the red pill and start to see the world as it truly is. And the key to this awakening is understanding the cycle of programming and reprogramming, because your beliefs shape your reality. They are, in essence, the code you live by. What you believe becomes what you experience, and so the power to change your experience begins with changing your beliefs. This is not a passive process, it's an active one. It's about questioning those beliefs and choosing to recode the reality that you want to live. Your personal reality isn't some external thing, it's an internal construct. It's your unique interpretation of a common experience. This means you possess the power to change it, starting with how you perceive it. Understanding this is not just an intellectual exercise. It is the key to personal freedom. It is the key to taking back your power. This isn't just about ideas. It's about practical freedom. It's about waking up from the Matrix and not letting outside forces manipulate you into staying asleep. The potential for positive change here is profound, and this understanding may well be the turning point in your life that you have been searching for. Imagine a world where you're no longer a passive victim of circumstance, but an active co-creator of your experience. If you can accept the premise that your beliefs act as the code of your reality, then you'll understand that, by changing your code, you change your matrix, and that is the key to personal freedom. We can use the idea of death and rebirth as a way to represent this radical shift. We die to the old programmed self and are reborn into the new empowered version. This is about moving from a passive, programmed existence to an active, conscious one, and that is the ultimate purpose of this video. Now, let's lay the groundwork. Reality, as you experience it, isn't a fixed entity, it's a subjective experience. It's your interpretation of a common experience. Even at the level of quantum physics, the act of observation changes the outcome. It's like the Matrix reacting to your focus. It shifts when you pay attention. And if reality isn't fixed, then the code that creates your experience is not fixed either. This is where the concept of programmed beliefs comes in. These aren't necessarily your own beliefs. They are often the result of cultural, social, and familial programming. And these programs create the limits of what we consider possible. For example, many people assume you have to work hard to be successful, and this idea alone creates a reality that reinforces that experience. These limiting ideas, like the code of the Matrix, often go unquestioned. In this video, we will be examining three main threads: the idea of reality as a construct, the power of beliefs, and the possibility of breaking free from the programming. These will all tie together and create a comprehensive picture of your real power. We will be repeating this cycle of questioning assumptions and adopting new perspectives many times throughout this video. This is the key to true awakening. But now, let's go deeper and explore some unanswered questions. If life is indeed a simulation, then who are the programmers? And what is the true purpose of the game? Are there forces acting behind the scenes? It's a bit like the agents in the Matrix. It creates a sense of mystery and maybe even a bit of danger. What if the knowledge of our own potential is being hidden from us? What if the awakening is not something that can be given to us, but something we must take for ourselves? What does that kind of awakening really look like? Think of it like swallowing the red pill in the Matrix. That is what this video is really about. The old version of you has to die so that the new version can be born. and this will become clearer as we continue. And most importantly, know that we will explore very practical actions you can take to rewrite your code and take back your power in a very real and very practical way. So let's dive in, and let's really start to unpack this idea of death as a form of awakening. It starts with the understanding that the feeling of being a separate self isn't some fundamental truth etched into the fabric of reality. It's a construct, a learned behavior, much like an avatar in a video game. These avatars appear to be distinct individuals, interacting in their own separate little worlds, but they are all, at their core, part of the same system. This sense of separation, this feeling that you are a distinct entity, is something you've been taught, a program you've been running without even knowing it. Think of it like this. You're in a crowded room, and a feeling of discomfort washes over you, like all those people are somehow invading your space. But is that discomfort really coming from them, or is it being generated internally by your own perceptions? This feeling isn't a direct truth. It's an interpretation, an internal construct that reinforces the idea that you are separate from the world around you. This is how the Matrix works. It's not just a film, it's a metaphor for our own lived experience. And this feeling of separation isn't just a one-off experience, it's a recurring loop, a pattern that constantly reinforces the illusion. Let's say, for example, you feel judged by someone. You believe they are sending negative vibes, making you feel small or inadequate. But what if, instead of this being an external attack, it's actually your own self-judgment being projected onto them? What if your own internal code is creating that experience of being judged? You see, the way you perceive the world is the way the Matrix presents itself to you. You create the very experience you then observe, and this happens again and again, forming a self-reinforcing cycle. It's like the characters in the Matrix playing out their own pre-written codes, believing in the reality of their roles without ever questioning the underlying program. And this is the very essence of the illusion, that what we perceive as external reality is a reflection of our internal operating system. So long as you believe that your discomfort in a crowded room is due to the actions of others, you will remain trapped in that loop. The discomfort doesn't come from outside, but from within. To understand this more deeply, we need to look at how your senses work. Your eyes, your ears, your skin, they are all simply taking in data, sending signals to your brain. But your brain isn't just passively receiving this data, it's processing it, interpreting it, and making sense of it, according to your own programmed beliefs. This processing, this internal interpretation, is the very core of the Matrix itself. It's the filter through which you perceive all your experiences. Think about how different people can look at the same data and arrive at completely different conclusions. Two people might witness the same event, yet each will interpret it differently depending on their personal coding, their unique set of beliefs, and their past experiences. It's all just the same data, being processed differently. Just like a computer, the way your data is processed determines how the simulation is experienced. This means you aren't just experiencing reality as it is, you are experiencing your own internal version of reality. It's like we're all watching the same movie on different screens. The movie is the same, but the viewing experience is unique. Now, here's the big question. Is your sense of self truly a unique, independent entity, or is it simply a character in your personal version of the Matrix? Is that feeling of separation, of being you versus them, actually there, or is it a program, an illusion? Think back to a time when you felt incredibly separate from others, perhaps in a moment of deep loneliness or isolation. Was that separation truly an external reality, or was it something you created within yourself? Was it a feeling rooted in some external truth, or was it the code you were running that made it so? Consider that perhaps the experience of separation is merely a program, a construct designed to maintain the illusion of individuality, and that the real truth is an underlying unity. What if your feeling of being separate and that feeling of discomfort you have in a crowd are both just lines of code in the simulation? And what if you had the power to rewrite that code? The idea that you are a separate self is the first wall of the matrix that must be taken down to really wake up. And that brings us to our next revelation. The shocking idea that many of your beliefs are not actually yours. They are not some personal truth, but rather cultural and societal programs, like lines of code written into your matrix without your conscious consent. It's like you've been running pre-installed software your entire life, accepting it as your own without ever questioning its validity or its source. Think about some common truths you've always held, like you have to work hard to succeed. Where did that idea come from? Is it a universal truth or just a program that you've downloaded from society? Perhaps success and happiness are not about working hard, but are actually defined by the individual. Perhaps your idea of success is a lie. These pre-programmed ideas act as limitations. They define the boundaries of what you consider possible, much like the code of the Matrix defines the boundaries of the virtual world. Just like in the Matrix, the code isn't always true, and it's not always good. This brings us to the next step, to learn to recognize and break down these limiting beliefs. You need to start actively questioning the very truths that you've taken for granted your whole life, like the idea that you have to work hard, or the idea that you aren't good enough. The key question you must begin to ask is, who wrote this code? Who or what is the source of this belief? Let's say you're carrying a deep fear of failure, constantly holding yourself back from trying new things. If you look closer, you might find that this fear comes from a critical parent or an early childhood experience, a program that was installed in your operating system a long time ago. The Matrix is a collection of these programs, each defining your reality and your actions. But now you have the power to unplug from that system. You can begin to examine the code, line by line, and choose what to keep and what to rewrite. Just as a programmer can change the code of a program, you can change the programs that are running in your mind, creating a new and different result. You don't have to be bound by the old limitations. You have the power to rewrite your own code. These limitations, this code, isn't just a set of abstract ideas. They actively limit your lived experience. The Matrix doesn't exist out there. It is a direct reflection of your internal code and what you think is possible. If you believe you are unworthy of love, for example, you will often find yourself in situations that reflect that belief, always validating your unworthiness. It is like you are living in a game, but only operating by the limitations of the game's code. You cannot, for example, fly in a game if flying isn't part of the code. But if you change the code, if you change your core beliefs, then you change the game itself. This isn't some airy-fairy notion. This is a very real and very practical understanding of the nature of your personal reality. If you believe that the world is a dangerous place, you will perceive it as such, and you will subconsciously create experiences to reinforce that belief. If you believe in your power, you will perceive opportunities to express that power. The Matrix will always play out the code you carry within you. It has to. Now, it's time for another perspective shift. The understanding here is that you are not your beliefs. You are the one who holds those beliefs, not the beliefs themselves. You are not your code. You are the one who has the power to write and rewrite that code. Imagine that you believe that you are not good enough. You might be very attached to that idea, like you might be very attached to the idea that you must work hard to succeed. But where does that idea come from? Is it really true? Can you really trust the code you are carrying? Consider that maybe, just maybe, your true nature is something much more powerful and expansive. So, take a moment to identify a belief that you feel very attached to, a belief that defines a very important part of your identity. Now, ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Is it inherently true, or is it a pre-programmed limitation? And most importantly, is that belief serving you, or is it limiting you? By choosing to question the validity of your beliefs, you're taking your first step toward rewriting your code and experiencing the Matrix in a completely new way. This is about recognizing that the code isn't fixed, and you are not limited to the code you are currently running. You can install any code you want. this leads us to our next critical point. The understanding that consciousness is the prime mover, that your internal world creates your external reality, and that you are the architect of your own matrix. It's not the other way around. Your physical world isn't some fixed external entity. Your physical world is simply a manifestation of your internal state, much like the matrix is just a manifestation of the underlying code. Let's say, for instance, you're facing a seemingly impossible situation. If you approach it with a sense of fear and limitation, you will naturally experience an outcome that matches that fear. But if you shift your inner state, if you approach it with positivity and a belief in your own abilities, you might find unexpected opportunities, completely rewriting the expected outcome. The matrix will reflect the code you are currently carrying. So, changing your code changes your matrix. It's like you are the director, the actor, and the screenwriter of your own life's movie. You are the one controlling the game. And this is not a passive process. This is about learning to actively shape your own experience by changing your internal state. This is about recoding your own personal matrix. Imagine you're stuck in a frustrating situation, maybe a long line or an annoying circumstance. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, you choose to observe the situation with curiosity and calm. You shift your perception, maybe even finding a sense of peace or enjoyment within the chaos. What happens then? You may realize that the situation is no longer frustrating, that it is simply an experience. And that experience is being filtered through the new code you are carrying. And just like that, you have changed your experience. You've actively rewritten the code of your personal matrix. It's like learning to control the game with the joystick, and that is what is being offered to you in this video, a chance to understand how to control your own reality. You are always in control, even when it doesn't appear that way. The real question is, are you aware that you are in control? To expand on this, the matrix is not some external force. It is an internal feedback loop. It reflects your own thoughts, feelings, and intentions. The world, as you experience it, is essentially a mirror reflecting the code you are carrying. If you are running a program of lack, for example, the matrix will return to you experiences of scarcity and limitation. But if you consciously choose to change that program, and to believe in your own abundance and creativity, the world will begin to respond in kind. The idea here is that your world is made of the sum total of your beliefs, which means that rewriting your beliefs is rewriting your world. This is not just a pretty idea, it is the core principle of reality itself. The matrix is always reflecting your internal state, always aligning itself with your code. You are the programmer, the code writer, and the player all at once. So now, let's shift perspective. What if you are not just a passive observer in this matrix, but an active co-creator? What if you possess the power to shape your reality through the power of your thoughts, feelings, and intentions? What kind of world would you choose to create if you understood your real potential? Take a moment to envision a desired outcome, a goal you wish to achieve, or a reality you long to experience. Instead of seeing it as something far away and unattainable, start actively focusing on it, seeing it as already present, and use that new vision as a way to start recoding your matrix. You are the director of your personal reality, and now you have the power to create the experience you want, instead of just passively experiencing the one you were given. You are the creator of your own matrix. And finally, this leads us to our last major point for this section, which is the idea of death as a transition, not an end, much like waking up from the matrix or shifting to a new level in a game. It's not the end of the story, it's simply a transition to a different level of awareness. This is where we return directly to our initial premise, that death is just an awakening. What if death isn't a final curtain call, but simply a shift to a new state of being? Many near-death experiences, for example, reveal a sense of expanded awareness, a feeling of connection to something larger than the individual self. What if this is the matrix being seen from a higher level of awareness? What if death is like removing the headset of a virtual reality game and suddenly seeing that the world was nothing but code. We need to see that even physical death is not an end. It is simply a transition from one level of awareness to another, much like we have been transitioning in this video. So death isn't an ending, it's a metaphor for releasing all the old identities and beliefs that no longer serve you. It's like shedding an old skin or the old code you were running. Think about a time when you let go of a long-held self-limiting belief, something that used to define you. What happened then? Perhaps you experienced a new sense of freedom, a feeling of lightness and joy. That death of the old belief created space for a new beginning. The death of an old idea makes space for a new idea. That is the point of this entire video. You have to be willing to let go of what you think you know in order to allow something more powerful to enter your consciousness. The death of the old is the beginning of the new. The Matrix is always being rewritten, but now you get to become the programmer. Let's go deeper. Death can also be seen as a release from all the limitations of the programmed Matrix. It's a chance to step outside the preset parameters and see reality from a different perspective, and this can happen in any moment. The true awakening is in the recognition that you are more than the programmed self, that you are the awareness, the consciousness that is creating the experience. You are not your code. You are the coder. This understanding is not limited to the moments before your physical death. This can be a continuous awakening, happening in each moment. It is about recognizing that the Matrix and all of its programs are ultimately just code, and that you are the one who is running them. You don't need to die in order to wake up. You can choose to wake up now. Death is simply a reminder of your potential for freedom. And this brings us to a powerful shift in perspective, the idea that you have the power to choose to wake up from the Matrix in every moment, and that the tools to do so have been given to you in this video. Death, in this sense, is simply the transition to another level of awareness, and that transition is always available to you. You don't have to wait for the end of your physical life to experience that awakening. You can consciously choose to step outside of the programmed reality and begin to experience life in a different way. You have learned, in this section of the video, that you are not your beliefs, and that you have the power to rewrite the code that is creating your experience. You are the architect of your own reality, and it is your conscious choice to use that power or to remain asleep. It is your choice. Now, we move on to the next stage of our awakening. Let's delve deeper into this idea of the illusion of separateness, because it's a key understanding that will set you free from the Matrix. The feeling of being a separate individual is heavily reinforced by our focus on personal identity, much like characters in a game who believe they are unique, while they are all simply a collection of code. Think about it. How often do you define yourself by your roles? You are a teacher, a parent, a worker, a friend. These are all just labels, roles you play in the grand drama of life. And these roles, these avatars you inhabit, strengthen the illusion that you are somehow separate from everyone else. You develop a story around who you are, a narrative that is heavily defined by your past experiences, your cultural programming, and your social roles. But is that who you really are, or is that just the code you are running? This focus on your individual identity intensifies the belief in your separateness, and it locks you deeper into the Matrix. The Matrix will create a sense of self, and it will then convince you that this self is really you. And this belief in separateness isn't just a passive observation, it's an active generator of conflict and judgment. When you believe that you are fundamentally separate from others, you begin to see the world through a lens of us versus them. You judge others based on how well they conform to your personal definition of what is right or wrong. You create a hierarchy of value with yourself at the top, and that will often lead to disagreement and tension. But what if that disagreement isn't about a fixed truth, but simply about two different perspectives, two different lines of code clashing against each other? Imagine a heated argument with someone you love, and both of you are convinced you are right. Yet, if you step outside that conflict, you might begin to see that both your perspectives are equally valid. That the conflict doesn't come from an external truth, but from your own internal interpretation of the situation. The agents in the Matrix, they too, are simply lines of code, doing what they are programmed to do. To choose to see unity rather than separation, that is the skill of waking up. To understand that even those who challenge you are simply code. The idea of separateness is a carefully designed lie, and it is essential to break free from that lie. So, if this feeling of separateness is an illusion, then what is the underlying truth? The truth is that everything is interconnected, that we are all part of one vast, unified consciousness. The Matrix is designed to keep you from that truth. Your sense of separation is temporary and self-imposed, like an avatar believing it's independent of the game. Think about nature. The trees, the animals, the oceans, they are all interconnected, they all affect one another. And you, too, are part of this grand interconnected web of life. Your sense of separation comes from your limited perception, your focus on the individual avatar, instead of the underlying reality. The Matrix is a limited frame of perception. It makes you believe you are a wave, rather than the ocean. A wave appears separate, but is always part of the ocean, and the ocean is always available to the wave. So how do we shift this perception from separation to interconnectedness? You need to actively look for connections rather than differences. You need to shift your focus from your individual story to the grander story of life itself. Think back to a time when you felt deeply connected to something, a moment of pure joy or love, when you felt one with the world around you. Was that connection real? Was it a glimpse into the true nature of things? That feeling of interconnectedness is always available if you simply shift your focus away from your individual story. You have the power to choose your code. You can choose to see separateness, or you can choose to see unity. And each moment, you are always choosing. You are actively recoding your matrix with each choice you make. And that leads us to the next point. Let's now dig deeper into these programmed belief systems, those sneaky little pieces of code that distort our reality. These beliefs act as filters, like a distorted lens through which you experience the world, like the code in the matrix that dictates what you can and cannot do. They are programs, running in the background, shaping your thoughts, feelings, and actions, often without your conscious awareness. You need to learn to see these filters in your own life and to understand them for what they are, just code. These are not personal truths, they are pre-written limitations that keep you locked inside the matrix. So how do you identify these hidden programs, these filters that distort your reality? Let's take a common limiting belief as an example. I am not worthy of love. This belief, like many others, is usually deeply buried in your subconscious, and it operates as a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you are unworthy of love, you will unconsciously create experiences to reinforce that belief. You might attract relationships that are abusive or neglectful. You might sabotage your own happiness. You are living as a program that is constantly seeking validation. This idea of unworthiness is like a corrupt line of code in your program, and you must learn how to identify that code and how to remove it. This is the act of debugging a belief, seeing it for what it really is, simply code. To actively choose not to believe in that code and to replace it with a different code, that is where your power lies. And this leads us to the next step. Actively challenging these programs. The key question to ask is this really true? When you catch yourself thinking a limiting thought, don't accept it as a fact. Question it. Look for evidence that contradicts that belief. Is there evidence that you are in fact worthy of love? Has there ever been a time in your life where you felt deeply loved and accepted? What if that was the real truth? Maybe you are worthy of love, but you've been running a program that tells you otherwise. What if the evidence of your own worthiness is abundant, and you simply haven't been paying attention? You are not a victim of your programming, you are the one who has the power to rewrite that code. And that is the very definition of hacking the matrix. You must actively look for alternative solutions, for other examples, for other possibilities. You must actively engage with the matrix to reshape it. This is an active choice, not a passive acceptance of what you have been given. Breaking free from these limiting beliefs isn't just about feeling better. It's about creating a completely different matrix, a different experience of reality. It is about choosing what kind of world you want to inhabit, about choosing the kind of code you want to run. If you continue to accept your current limitations, your reality will always be limited. But when you actively choose to break free from that limited programming, you open yourself to a reality of unlimited potential. Just like you can choose a new video game to play, you can choose to play a new version of reality, and to choose that new reality you have to rewrite the code of the old one. When you install a new code, you will naturally experience a new matrix. What if your reality was the result of the code you chose to believe in? This leads to an important perspective shift. You are not a victim of your programming, you are the programmer. You are the one who has the power to change the code, the beliefs that are shaping your reality. And you can make that change at any moment, this moment. Take a moment right now to identify a belief you hold that limits you, and then reframe that belief into an empowering one. You might believe that you are not good enough. You can choose to believe that you are infinitely worthy of love and abundance. It might feel like a lie at first, but the more you believe it, the more your matrix will begin to conform to your new code. You have the power to choose the code you carry, and thus you have the power to choose your experience. This ability to recode your matrix is absolutely essential to waking up. Now, let's explore this idea of consciousness as the prime mover, that your thoughts, feelings, and intentions are the very building blocks of your matrix. Consciousness, not the physical world, is the primary driver of your experience. Your consciousness is the source code of your matrix. Your reality is always responding to the programs you carry. If your program is focused on fear, your reality will always give you reasons to be fearful. But if your program is focused on love and abundance, that is what your world will reflect. You must begin to understand the power of your internal world and the power it has to shape your external experience. And this idea isn't just a theory, it is a practical understanding that you can use in your daily life. For example, let's say you have a big presentation coming up. If you visualize the presentation going perfectly, if you focus on the feeling of confidence and success, you will increase the likelihood of that positive outcome. And conversely, if you visualize a disaster, you will increase the likelihood of experiencing that disaster. You are always manifesting your reality with each thought and each feeling. Every idea you carry has an effect on the matrix. By changing what you are carrying inside, you are changing what you get back from the matrix. This idea is not about some airy-fairy notion of manifestation. It is simply about understanding that your consciousness is the very code of your reality. You can control the program if you chose to be an active participant in it. To take this further, you can consciously direct your consciousness to reshape your external circumstances. The way you do that is to learn to control your focus. Let's do a quick visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and bring your attention to something you want to experience. Maybe it's a feeling of peace, a feeling of joy, a feeling of abundance. Feel that feeling in your body. Imagine it is real. Allow yourself to fully experience that feeling for a few moments. When you open your eyes, your perception of the world will be different. The matrix is designed to reflect the code you carry. This is about learning to intentionally direct your code. You are always creating, and you must choose to create consciously. You are actively recoding your matrix by intentionally directing your thoughts, feelings, and intentions. And this leads us to another important understanding. The matrix is a mirror. It reflects your internal state, and the reflection can only be changed by changing what is being reflected. The external world you experience is merely a reflection of your internal program, your inner world. If you want to change the reflection, you must change the source. If you are not happy with what you are getting, then you must change what you are giving. The matrix is always reflecting back at you what you carry inside. It cannot do otherwise. To change the matrix, you must change the code you are running. It's that simple, and it is that profound. And it is the key to waking up. So now it is time for a perspective shift. Are you ready? You are not a victim of the Matrix, you are the author of it. You are not the character, you are the programmer, the one who has been given the power to shape their own experience. You are always choosing what to believe. Every experience is a reflection of your internal code. You are always creating. You are always writing the code that is creating the simulation that you call your life. Now it is time to choose to write a better code, to create a better matrix. This is not about escaping your reality. It is about taking full responsibility for it. You can change your matrix at any moment simply by choosing to do so. And that leads us to our final point for this section, the idea of death as a transition, not an end. Much like unplugging from a game or shifting to a different level of awareness, it is the ultimate recoding of the matrix. And just like that death you have been experiencing in this video, where you let go of old ideas to make space for the new physical death too, is simply a change of perspective. Consider, for a moment, those who have had near-death experiences. They often report a sense of expanded awareness, a feeling of connection to something larger than themselves. This isn't a scientific claim, but a metaphor for what is always available to us. What if this experience is a glimpse of the Matrix from a higher level of awareness, a moment of realizing that the rules of the game do not always apply? What if the death of the body is just like removing the headset of a virtual reality game, and you are once again aware that it was all just code? In the same way that you have been killing the old ideas you have been carrying, the physical death too is nothing but a transformation. It's a transition from one level of awareness to another, much like we have been transitioning in this video. And death, therefore, is a metaphor for releasing old identities and beliefs that no longer serve you. It's like shedding an old skin or getting rid of a piece of code you no longer need. Think about a time when you consciously decided to let go of something that no longer served you. Maybe it was a relationship, a job, or a long-held belief. What happened then? Did you experience a new sense of freedom, a feeling of lightness and joy? What if death isn't the end of the story, but simply a transition to a new level in the game? A chance to begin again with new knowledge and a new set of possibilities. That death of the old is what creates space for the new. Just like a new level is unlocked in a game, every death is simply unlocking a new level of awareness. And this reboot of the system can also be experienced now, not just when you die. You are always choosing, and you can always recode your matrix. And this idea of death as transition isn't just for the end of physical life. It's a way of looking at every moment. The true awakening is in the understanding that you are more than the programmed self, that you are the awareness that is creating the experience. You are not your code. You are the coder. This can be a continuous awakening, happening in every single moment. You do not have to die to wake up. You can choose to wake up now and to claim the power you already have. Death is simply a reminder of the freedom that is always available to you. It is not something you must experience one day, but something you can choose in any moment. And this brings us to a powerful new perspective. You can wake up from the Matrix at any time, and that the tools to do so have been offered to you in this video. Physical death is simply a transition to another level of awareness, and that transition is always available to you. You don't have to wait for the end of your life to experience that. You can choose to step outside the programmed reality and begin to experience life in a completely new way. You have learned that you are not your beliefs, that you have the power to rewrite the code that creates your experience, and that you are the architect of your own matrix. It is now your choice to use that power or to remain asleep. This has been an invitation to consciously choose your own reality. Now we move on to the next part of our awakening, where we explore some practical tools that you can use right now to recode your matrix. So let's talk about the illusion of separateness. This is a really important concept, and it's essential to understanding how the matrix works and how to step outside of it. To unplug from the matrix, the first step is to recognize that this feeling of separation is not a fundamental truth, but rather a deeply ingrained habit, a program that's running in the background, and that we can choose to rewrite that code. It's like a character in a game believing they are unique, while they are simply lines of code, interacting with other lines of code within the larger structure of the game itself. The feeling of separateness is a construct, a carefully designed program that keeps you locked in, and the most direct way to start changing this is to actively choose to see the interconnectedness of all things, just like the waves that are always part of the ocean. To move from the individual self to the collective self, that is the key to escaping the matrix. To start seeing the interconnectedness, you can try this simple awareness exercise. Take a moment right now to become aware of the space around you. Notice the objects in your immediate vicinity, the chair you're sitting on, the screen you're looking at, the air you're breathing. Now, consider where those things came from. The chair was made from wood, which came from a tree, and that tree grew from the earth. The screen is made of minerals that were mined from the ground, and the air you are breathing was exhaled by something else. Everything is interconnected. Everything is part of one grand story. You too are part of that story. Feel that connection, that feeling of being part of something larger. And this feeling, this awareness of unity, is the first step in choosing a new code, in rewriting the script of your reality, in changing the matrix in real time. And this choice, this shift from separation to unity, is not a one-time decision. It is an active and ongoing process, a continuous choice you must make in each moment. Every interaction you have with another being is an opportunity to either reinforce the illusion of separateness or to choose unity. For example, think about a situation where you felt triggered by someone's words or actions. You might have felt anger or resentment or a feeling of being wronged. This feeling is the result of the belief that you are separate from them, that their actions are a personal affront to your individual self. But what if you could see that person as simply another part of the same whole, as another player in the same game? What if, instead of reacting from a place of judgment, you could choose to respond with understanding, with compassion, with a desire to connect? This is how you become an active player in your own game. This is how you begin to recode the matrix, by choosing to change how you respond to each situation. By choosing connection over separation, you are actively shaping your reality. When you choose to operate from the understanding of interconnectedness, a profound shift occurs. You realize that the suffering of others is also your suffering, and that their joy is also your joy. The feeling of separation is the very source of suffering. The belief that I am separate from you is what creates conflict. The ego, which is a collection of code, is entirely attached to the idea of separation, because that is what keeps it in existence. But when you begin to see beyond the ego, when you understand that you are not just a limited self, but also part of a unified whole, you begin to experience a sense of deep peace, a sense of belonging. You see that even the agents who try to hold you back are simply part of your own experience. You see everything with new eyes, and that's how you create a new matrix. You are writing new code with each conscious choice you make, and each choice can either deepen your connection to the illusion or help you escape it. You are always choosing. Now, let's turn our attention to the concept of programmed belief systems, these deeply ingrained patterns of thought that often operate beneath the level of conscious awareness, and that are shaping your experience of the matrix every single moment. These beliefs are like the very lines of code that determine how the matrix is displayed, and when you become aware of them and learn to rewrite them, you gain the power to change the experience itself. Just like a character in a video game can be updated with new code, you too have the power to upgrade the code you are running. To begin to rewrite your limiting beliefs is to begin to hack your own matrix. You are, in essence, rewriting the operating system of your reality. So, how do you begin this process of rewriting the code? Well, let's use a very common limiting belief as an example. I am not good enough. This thought might seem innocuous, but it can have a very profound effect on your reality. This belief can manifest as self-doubt, procrastination, and a tendency to settle for less than you deserve. So, how do you actively debug that code? First, you have to identify that the code is running. The moment you hear yourself saying, "I am not good enough," you must stop and recognize that this is simply a program running in your subconscious. The next step is to actively challenge this code. Is this belief actually true? What if it was not? Is there any evidence that suggests that you are good enough? Perhaps you have achieved things, you have helped others, you have shown courage, resilience, and compassion. These examples are data points that actively contradict that initial thought, and this is where you begin to see the underlying flaw in that program, in that line of code. This is how you begin to take the power back. And after seeing the flawed code, you have the opportunity to write a new one. You can replace "I'm not good enough" with "I am infinitely worthy of love, success, and abundance." This may feel strange or untrue at first, but the more you believe it, the more your matrix will begin to reflect this new belief. Every time that old code shows up, you can choose to overwrite it with a new code. You are in essence rewriting the operating system of your reality. Just like you upgrade the software of your computer to make it more efficient, you can choose to upgrade your own code and to experience a completely new version of reality. You have the power to rewrite the code of your own matrix. And this is something you can do at any given moment, as many times as you chose. This is why it is important to regularly examine your belief systems, to question their validity. This is not a one-time task, but a continuous practice. You can start by keeping a journal where you write down the limiting thoughts that you notice. Each thought is a line of code, and once you begin to identify that code, you can then rewrite it. You can create a new operating system for yourself, one that is more aligned with your desires and aspirations. You must actively engage with your inner world to reshape your outer world. You must understand that they both operate based on the same code. Every belief you carry creates a program, and that program creates a specific matrix, a specific experience of reality. And the best way to reshape your matrix is to choose a new code to run. You are not stuck with the old version. You can choose to upgrade at any time. Now, let's explore the concept of consciousness as the prime mover. This is the understanding that your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions, they are not just passive experiences, but are the very force that shapes your reality, the very code that is creating your matrix. It's not just that your consciousness interprets your reality, it creates it, much like the code in a video game creates the game itself. The matrix is, in essence, a reflection of your internal world, and when you learn to direct your consciousness with intention, you learn to reshape that reflection, to recode your matrix, and to experience a completely new reality. To understand this power, consider the act of visualization. When you vividly imagine a desired outcome, when you feel the emotions associated with that outcome as if it were already real, you activate the very code that is necessary to bring it into existence. It is not magic, it's simply the way the matrix works. For example, if you want to experience more joy, you can choose to vividly visualize joyful situations. You can allow yourself to feel the emotions of joy, and the more you practice this, the more your external world will begin to reflect this internal code. Just as a computer program runs according to its code, your reality runs according to your inner program. And the more intentional you become, the more you will experience the reality you want to create. You have the power to choose, you have the power to rewrite the code, and thus you have the power to create your own matrix. And to see this in action, try this simple exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and bring your attention to something you truly desire. Maybe it is a feeling of peace, a feeling of confidence, a feeling of abundance. Allow yourself to fully experience that feeling in your body. Notice how your body responds to that feeling. Is there a physical sensation of warmth, joy, expansion? Allow yourself to fully embody that feeling. And the more you do this, the more you will create the reality that is aligned with that specific code. This is the very definition of hacking the matrix, of taking full responsibility for your experience. You must be intentional, and you must practice to become proficient at changing your code. The understanding of consciousness as the prime mover invites a profound perspective shift. You are not a passive observer of reality, you are an active co-creator. This is not about waiting for things to happen, it is about actively shaping them. It's about recognizing that your experience is a mirror, that the external world is a reflection of your internal state, and that the most direct way to change the reflection is to change what is being reflected. You are in control, you are always writing the code, you are always in the process of creating your reality, and you can choose to be more intentional, and that is the very definition of waking up. You chose what code to run, and therefore you choose what your experience will be. Now let's talk about death as a transition, not as an end. Just like we have been doing throughout this video, where we killed old ideas to make space for the new, we can use death as a metaphor for the constant process of releasing old identities and embracing new ones, much like unplugging from the matrix to explore the reality that lies beyond. This death and rebirth cycle is the ultimate form of recoding the matrix. It is the constant upgrade of the human experience. It is about moving from one level of understanding to another. It's about constantly reinventing yourself, about becoming more and more aligned with your true potential. To understand this idea, let's start with a practical example. Think about a time when you consciously decided to let go of something that no longer served you. Perhaps it was a limiting belief, a toxic relationship, or a deadened job. What did that experience feel like? Was there a sense of sadness, of loss, of grieving? Perhaps, but was there also a sense of freedom, of new possibilities opening up? What if that experience of letting go was a small death, a small transition to a new version of yourself? It was the letting go of old code and embracing new code. It was the reboot of the system. And this idea of death as a transition is something you can apply to every aspect of your life. Every ending opens a new beginning. Every loss creates space for new growth. And this is a skill you can develop by engaging consciously in this process. And this death isn't just about a physical event or an end of a relationship or a job. It is a process that you can engage in at any given moment. You can choose to let go of an old pattern of behavior, an old way of thinking, and to choose a new one. Each time you chose to do so, you are in essence dying to the old self and being born as a new version of yourself. Every conscious choice is a form of recoding, and this understanding will give you an immense amount of freedom. Every moment is a new opportunity to reinvent yourself, to create a new matrix. It's about choosing to be in constant evolution. And this leads us to a powerful new perspective. You can wake up from the matrix at any time you choose. Death is a metaphor for the ultimate shift of consciousness from one level of awareness to another, and you can make that shift at any given moment. You can choose to release the limiting beliefs that hold you back. You can choose to embrace the power of your consciousness, and you can choose to step into a new reality. Every time you chose to rewrite your code, every time you chose a new experience, you are in essence dying to the old version of yourself and choosing to create the new. This is not just a theory, but a very real and practical understanding that can profoundly transform your life. Every moment, you are always choosing what code to run, and thus, you are always choosing what matrix to experience. The power has always been yours. So, let's take this a step further and delve into how this illusion of separateness is maintained, how we are continuously choosing to reinforce that experience. It's not something that is happening to you, but rather something you are actively choosing to experience, and that is how the matrix keeps you locked in. It's maintained by a constant focus on our individual needs and desires, a relentless preoccupation with what we want, what we need, what we lack, as if we were separate islands, adrift in a vast and indifferent ocean. This focus creates the separation that we perceive. It's a self-imposed code, a program that runs in the background, reinforcing the very reality you're trying to escape. It's like being in a multiplayer game, but believing you are the only character that matters. Every interaction with another player is now seen from the perspective of how they can serve your goals. You are constantly reinforcing that code, so the matrix constantly reinforces that feeling of separation. Think about those everyday situations that often trigger frustration or anger. Waiting in a long line at the store, being stuck in a traffic jam, or dealing with a rude customer service representative. In each of these situations, your focus is likely on your inconvenience, your wasted time, your unmet needs. This self-centered focus is the code that creates the feeling of being separate, and it makes you believe that these situations are inherently frustrating or that other people are intentionally being difficult. But what if you could shift your focus to see beyond your own limited perspective? What if you could recognize that the person in front of you in line is also a human being with their own story, their own challenges, their own needs, and they too are simply a character in the same game? What if, instead of being annoyed by the traffic, you could view it as an opportunity to practice patience, or to listen to a podcast, or to simply enjoy the present moment? These situations are only frustrating if you hold on to your sense of being separate from others. This separation is a code you are running, and you can choose to rewrite that code. The pattern here is very simple. You can choose empathy and understanding over judgment and separation, and this is an active choice you can make in each moment. This is not a passive process or a hopeful thought, but rather a very practical skill to be developed, and it is the most effective way to change your experience of the matrix. To make it even more practical, let's imagine a situation where you are triggered by someone's actions. Perhaps a colleague makes a comment that you find offensive, or a friend cancels plans at the last minute. Your initial reaction might be to feel anger, resentment, or a desire to retaliate. But instead of giving in to those initial reactions, you can choose to actively shift your perspective and rewrite the code of that interaction. You can start by taking a deep breath, creating some space between the trigger and your reaction. Then, you can ask yourself some very practical questions. What else could be going on here? Is it possible that they didn't intend to hurt me? How can I respond with empathy and understanding? This simple process allows you to actively shift your perspective from separation to connection. It's like being a game designer who gets to rewrite the rules of the game, to change the code, to change the matrix in real time. Every interaction is an opportunity to choose unity over separation. Every moment is an opportunity to recode the matrix. Think of it like this. If each interaction is a line of code, every choice you make is either reinforcing the illusion of separation or reinforcing the experience of unity. If you are angry, you are reinforcing a code of separation, and if you are empathetic, you are reinforcing a code of unity. And this choice is always available to you. And the more you consciously choose the code of unity, the more your personal matrix will reflect that new reality. And that leads us to the next layer of understanding. We are all interconnected parts of a larger whole, like interconnected lines of code within a single matrix. Just like the waves are never separate from the ocean, each of our individual experiences are interwoven into a larger tapestry, and our choices have ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings. To understand this concept more deeply, imagine the interconnectedness of a spider web. Each strand is connected to every other strand, and when one strand vibrates, the whole web is affected. Similarly, our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings all create ripples that influence not just our lives, but the lives of others and the whole world around us. And just as the spider is not separate from the web, we are not separate from the world around us. We are all part of a unified whole. This interconnectedness is a fundamental truth, which is obscured by the illusion of separateness, a lie the matrix keeps telling you. By understanding that you are not separate from the larger system, you begin to see the true implications of your choices. When you choose to harm another person, you are in essence harming yourself, because you are part of the same web. When you choose to help another person, you are in essence helping yourself, because you are all connected. And the more you understand this interconnectedness, the more you begin to see the importance of every action and every intention. You begin to make conscious choices that are aligned with the highest good of all, because you see that your personal good is tied to the collective good. You stop being a character in the game, and you begin to see yourself as the game itself, as all the players at once, and this perspective is the only way to choose a new matrix. So, how can you start to live from this perspective of unity? Well, I invite you to view your life as a series of opportunities to practice seeing these connections. Every moment is a chance to choose the code you want to live by, to actively shape your personal experience of the matrix, to rewrite your own game. You can start with very simple actions. Smile at a stranger, offer to help someone in need, send a message to a friend, or listen to someone's story without judgment. These acts of connection might seem small, but they create a powerful shift in your internal state and in the world around you. And the more you practice these simple acts of connection, the more you begin to see the underlying truth that connects us all. You begin to see the other players, not as opponents, but rather as fellow travelers in the same game. And as you engage in this daily practice, pay attention to how your internal state changes. Do you feel more open, more connected, more at peace? Do you notice that the world around you seems to be more supportive, more harmonious, more loving? This is not just a coincidence. It is a direct result of your choice to see unity, to recode the matrix by choosing love over separation. You are actively shaping your experience. You are actively writing the code, and you are actively creating your own reality. And with every step, you are moving closer to the truth that lies beyond the illusion, to the reality where you are connected to all that is, and you are part of the infinite ocean of consciousness. Now, let's turn our attention to another very practical way to hack your matrix, by deconstructing your programmed beliefs. These are the unconscious lines of code that you have been running for years, if not decades, and they have been shaping your experience without you even realizing it. The good news is that identifying and challenging these limiting beliefs is an active skill, something that you can develop through consistent effort. And this skill, this ability to actively change your code, is the most practical way to change your experience, to recode your matrix. It's like being a software engineer that finally has access to the operating system, and you can now begin the process of updating the code, of upgrading the experience, of creating a completely new matrix. Let's get very specific about this and create a repeatable process that you can apply to any limiting belief. First, you have to identify a belief, and this is best done in the moment. The next time you notice yourself thinking a limiting thought, stop and take a moment. Maybe you are feeling self-doubt. Perhaps you are thinking, I am not capable, or I am not worthy of love, or I don't deserve to be happy. Once you identify that specific thought, that specific line of code, you can then proceed with the next step, which is to trace its origins. Ask yourself some very simple, practical questions. Where did this belief come from? Did I adopt it from my family, my culture, my friends? Is it possible that this belief is not actually my own, but something that was installed in my system? Understanding the origin of a belief is the first step in dismantling its power over you. It allows you to see it as something that was imposed upon you, rather than something that is inherently true about you. It's like discovering that a piece of software was installed without your permission, and now you have the power to uninstall it. And this leads to the third step, reframing the belief. Once you understand that the belief is not actually yours, and that it's simply a line of code that can be changed, you can choose to replace it with a more empowering one. For example, you can replace, I am not capable with, I am infinitely capable, and I can learn anything I set my mind to. Or you can replace, I am not worthy of love with, I am inherently worthy of love, simply because I exist. The specific empowering belief you chose is not important. What truly matters is that it reflects your highest potential, that it reflects what you truly want to experience. And with this new code, you can begin to change your matrix. This process of identifying, tracing, and reframing a belief is not a one-time task, but rather an ongoing process, a continuous cycle of self-inquiry, and a constant choice to upgrade your code. Each time you notice a limiting belief, you can choose to engage in this process, and each time you do, you weaken its power over you. You are becoming more and more intentional, more and more aware of how you are creating your own reality. You are not just a player in the game, you are also becoming the programmer, the designer, the writer of the game. And that process allows you to reshape the matrix. You are rewriting the operating system that creates your experience. Now, let's explore this idea further. Your beliefs create a very specific feedback loop, where your experiences continuously reinforce your beliefs. If you believe that the world is a dangerous place, you will tend to notice evidence that supports that belief, and this will create experiences that reinforce that belief. Similarly, if you believe that you are worthy of love and success, you will tend to notice the evidence that supports that belief, and this will create experiences that reinforce that belief. This process is self-reinforcing, and it will continue to shape your experience unless you choose to change the underlying code. It's like a program running on loop, constantly generating the same output until you actively change the code. This feedback loop is the key to understanding how our beliefs shape our reality. It's how the matrix responds to the code we are running. And you can see this feedback loop in action through real-world examples. The self-fulfilling prophecy is a very clear example of how our beliefs shape our reality. If you believe you are going to fail, you will likely act in ways that increase the chance of that outcome. And the opposite is also true. If you believe you are going to succeed, you will likely act in ways that increase the chance of that outcome. And similarly, the placebo effect shows the power of our beliefs to influence our physical health. When someone believes they are taking a medicine, even if it's just a sugar pill, they can experience real and measurable positive outcomes. It is not the pill that is creating the change, but the underlying belief that they are going to heal. All these examples show how your beliefs create your experience and how your internal world is reflected in your external world. You are always writing the code, and the matrix is always responding. And this understanding leads us to a very powerful perspective shift. You are not your beliefs. You are not a collection of lines of code. You are the conscious observer of those beliefs, the awareness that is present behind all those thoughts and emotions. You are the space within which the matrix is unfolding. And when you begin to see yourself as the observer, you begin to recognize that you are not limited by your beliefs. You have the power to choose new beliefs. You have the power to change your code, and thus you have the power to change your experience. You are the programmer, not just the program. You are the writer, not just the words. You are the designer of your own reality. And this is the most important realization that will lead you to freedom. You are choosing the code, and therefore you are choosing the matrix. Now, let's explore the idea that you can intentionally shape your matrix by directing your attention with intention. This is not just a theory, but a very practical skill you can all develop. It's about understanding that your attention is a powerful tool, a form of energy that can create your reality. It's like being a spotlight, where whatever you shine your light on becomes stronger, and whatever you chose to ignore becomes weaker. So, when you chose to focus your attention on positive possibilities, you are in essence creating the conditions for those possibilities to manifest in your matrix. It's like being a composer who can use a specific arrangement of notes to create a symphony. You can use your attention and intention to create the reality you desire. This is the most direct way to become the architect of your own experience. To experience this for yourself, let's use a simple visualization technique. Take a moment to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and bring your attention to a desired outcome. It could be a feeling of peace, a feeling of joy, a feeling of abundance, or perhaps a specific goal that you want to achieve. Once you have this outcome clearly in your mind, allow yourself to feel the emotions associated with that outcome as if it were already real. Imagine the sights, the sounds, the sensations of living that reality. The more vivid and real your visualization becomes, the more powerful it is. This act of visualization is the beginning of the manifestation, the beginning of the recoding of your matrix. And as you visualize your desired outcome, pay attention to your feelings. Your feelings are a compass that will guide you. They are a form of energetic feedback that will inform you if you are on the right path. If you feel expansive, inspired, or joyful, it means you are aligning your consciousness with that positive possibility, and you are, in essence, running the code of your desired matrix. But if you feel contracted, anxious, or fearful, it means that you are aligning with a limiting perspective, and this is an indication that you may need to refocus your attention and rewrite the code. You are always being guided by your feelings. They are the best data points you have, and this pattern of using your feelings as a guide is a very practical skill to develop. Whenever you notice a negative feeling, don't allow yourself to fall into the loop of despair, but rather use that information as data that guides you to make a different choice. You can consciously choose to redirect your attention towards a positive intention, towards a more empowering outcome, and as you do that, you actively change your emotions, and you actively change the code that is shaping your matrix. It's like being the driver of a vehicle. You can choose what direction to take, and the more intentional you become, the more control you will have. This is how you begin to actively engineer your own consciousness and the reality you experience. You become the programmer of the game. The key to understanding this is that your attention is a powerful tool that shapes reality. It's not a passive process where you just notice what is happening, but it is an active choice to direct your energy towards a specific outcome. Your attention is a form of energy that has the power to create your experience, and when you choose to focus on what you want, you are, in essence, creating the conditions for that to manifest in your reality. Just as a spotlight amplifies whatever it shines upon, your attention amplifies whatever you focus on. And when you combine that with the power of intention, your attention can become the most powerful creative force in your experience. You are actively writing the code of your experience. You are actively changing your matrix. And this brings us to a very powerful perspective. You are the architect of your own reality. You are not a helpless victim of circumstance, but rather a powerful co-creator who has the ability to shape your own matrix. You can choose to direct your attention with intention, you can choose to believe in your own power, and you can choose to create the life you truly want to experience. You are the game designer, the programmer, and the writer of your own story. And as you embrace this understanding, you become more and more empowered, more and more aligned with your true potential. You are the architect of your own matrix, and the power to shape your experience has always been yours. Finally, let's bring all of this together with the understanding of death as a transition. It is not just something that happens at the end of life, but rather something you can actively choose in every moment. You can consciously die to your old self and consciously choose to recode your matrix. This understanding is a powerful tool that will allow you to reinvent yourself, to constantly upgrade your experience, to step into new possibilities, and to become more and more aligned with your true potential. It is about being in a constant cycle of change, a continuous evolution, where you release what no longer serves you so you can create something new. This is the final upgrade of the system, the ultimate tool to redesign the matrix. And to explore this idea, let's start with a practical example. Think about a habit or a pattern of behavior that you want to change. Maybe you procrastinate, or you tend to criticize yourself, or you allow fear to hold you back. Now, imagine that you are consciously choosing to let go of that old pattern, to die to that old version of yourself. You can visualize that version of yourself dissolving, like a cloud that disappears in the sky, and you can use this opportunity to create space for a new version of yourself to emerge. This simple practice is an act of conscious death, a moment where you chose to let go of the past so you can step into the future. You are rewriting the code, and rebooting the system. And this pattern of death and rebirth is not just a one-time event, but rather something that you can engage with in every transition, in every change you experience. Whenever something ends, whether it's a relationship, a job, or a belief, you can choose to see it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to shed an old skin and to step into a new version of yourself. It's about choosing to embrace the constant flow of change, to see that every ending is also a new beginning, that every loss creates space for new growth. It's like the never-ending cycle of seasons, where death is always followed by rebirth, and that cycle is present in every moment, and you are always free to choose to engage with it. You are always able to choose a new code, to create a new matrix. And with this perspective, you begin to understand that you are not limited by your past, by your experiences, or your circumstances. You have the power to create a new future at any moment by intentionally choosing to release the past and embracing the potential of the present. This is what living in the present truly means. It's about letting go of the old lines of code that you are running and choosing to create new ones. It's about stepping into the unknown with courage and excitement, knowing that you have the power to create your own experience. You are choosing the matrix in every moment, and the only thing holding you back is your own perspective and your old code. And this understanding leads us to the most powerful perspective shift. Death is not an end, but rather an opportunity for transformation, an opportunity to consciously choose to upgrade your experience. And this is the awakening that we have been talking about from the beginning. You can consciously choose to die to the old and embrace the new, and you can use all the tools we have been exploring in this video to actively recode your matrix at any given moment, and to fully step into your power as a conscious co-creator of reality. You can choose to rewrite your code at any moment, and you can use this understanding to rewrite your life. And this is the ultimate freedom in the matrix. Every moment is a new opportunity to wake up, a new opportunity to choose the code, a new opportunity to experience a different matrix. So, let's take the idea of separateness and move it from a concept into a practical daily application. We've established that this feeling of being separate from others is an illusion, a misinterpretation of the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. But how do we dismantle that feeling in the messy, unpredictable, and often frustrating reality of our everyday lives? The key is to actively choose to see beyond the surface, to recognize that every single person is simply an expression of the same underlying source code. That what we perceive as differences are nothing more than different ways the same matrix. Game is being played, different characters in the same story. It's not enough to know this intellectually, you must learn to embody it, to make this knowledge a part of your daily interactions and experiences. This is how you begin to truly rewrite your experience of the matrix, by actively choosing connection over separation. Let's explore a very specific example. Imagine you're in a crowded grocery store and someone bumps into you with their cart without even apologizing. Your initial reaction might be frustration, perhaps even anger. You might feel that this person is being rude, inconsiderate, or even aggressive. Now, instead of letting this initial reaction take over, you can choose to consciously shift your perception. You can take a deep breath and ask yourself, what else might be going on with them? Maybe they are having a bad day, maybe they are stressed out, maybe they are simply not aware of their surroundings. By actively choosing to see the situation from a place of empathy, you begin to dismantle the illusion of separation. You recognize that their behavior is not a personal attack, but rather a reflection of their own internal state, their own unique experience within this matrix. It's like realizing that you are both playing different roles in the same game, and that what seems like conflict is just a misunderstanding of the underlying rules. You are both just code, and you can choose to experience that code from a place of empathy and connection. And this act of choosing connection over separation is not a one-time fix, but rather a continuous pattern that you can develop over time, a way of intentionally choosing to recode your experience. Consider a situation where you are triggered by someone's words. Perhaps a family member makes a comment that you find judgmental, or a colleague criticizes your work. Your initial reaction might be to become defensive, to argue, or to withdraw. But instead of falling into that old pattern, you can choose to actively seek connection. You can ask yourself, why are they saying this? What could be their motivation? Is there something I am missing? By actively choosing to see the situation from their perspective, you begin to understand that their actions are not meant to harm you, and that you both are simply experiencing the matrix from different points of view. And just like that, you have chosen to rewrite a line of code that could have led to separation, and instead you chose a code of connection. This act of seeking connection is the most effective way to experience your matrix from a different perspective, to truly recognize that what you see as separate is simply a different expression of the same underlying reality. And as you embrace this interconnectedness, you begin to cultivate greater compassion, not just for others, but also for yourself. You recognize that everyone is doing the best they can with the information they have, and that everyone is on their own unique path within this game. And the more you embody this compassion, the more you shift your experience, you begin to understand that this compassion is also the ultimate form of freedom. It's a choice to move beyond blame, judgment, and separation, and into a space of love and acceptance, and that change of perspective changes everything. This is not just a nice idea. It is a practical tool for creating a better experience, not just for yourself, but for the whole world. And finally, let's shift perspective one last time. What if you saw every interaction, every encounter, every exchange as an opportunity to strengthen your sense of unity, to actively recode the matrix from a place of love? I invite you to consciously seek out opportunities to connect with others in your daily lives. Smile at the people you pass on the street, offer a kind word to a stranger, or engage in a genuine conversation with the people you meet. Each of these simple acts is a powerful step towards dismantling the illusion of separateness and creating a new reality, a reality that reflects the truth of your interconnectedness. You are the programmer, the designer, the writer, and the main character of your matrix, and every moment is an opportunity to rewrite your story, to change your code, to create a new experience of reality. This is how you actively choose your freedom. Now, let's move on to the next very practical way to hack your reality, by actively choosing to rewrite your programmed beliefs. We have established that many of your thoughts, many of your ideas, many of your deepest convictions are not truly your own. They are simply the result of years of societal and cultural programming, unconscious lines of code running in the background, creating your experience. Now, the question becomes, how can you step into your power and actively choose the beliefs that create a more empowering experience? The answer is very simple. By becoming aware of your old patterns, you are able to rewrite your code. This is the real way to recode your matrix, by becoming the conscious programmer of your own mind. To make this more practical, let's go through a specific process. First, the next time you notice a limiting belief, a thought that makes you feel disempowered or inadequate, don't simply dismiss it, but instead pause and observe it carefully. Maybe you are thinking, I am not good enough, or I don't deserve to be happy, or I will never be successful. Once you identify that specific thought, that limiting belief, you can then begin to actively question its validity. Ask yourself, is this belief actually true? Where did this belief come from? Is this belief serving me, or is it holding me back? By asking these simple questions, you start to weaken the power that belief has over you. It's like a virus on your computer. Once you realize that it's there and you know its source, you can start removing it. Next, trace the origin of the belief. Where did it come from? Was it something you heard from your parents, your teachers, the media, or perhaps your peers? Was it a message you received during your childhood, or something you picked up later in life? By understanding where a belief came from, you begin to see that it's not inherently true about you, but rather something that was imposed upon you. It's like realizing that your favorite software was not designed for you. and it's now time to choose a different program. And finally, chose to replace that limiting belief with an empowering one, a belief that supports your highest potential, a belief that is in alignment with the reality that you want to experience. For example, you can replace "I am not good enough" with "I am inherently worthy, and I am capable of achieving anything I set my mind to." Or you can replace "I don't deserve to be happy" with "I am worthy of joy, love, and abundance in all areas of my life." The new belief is the code that will help you create the matrix you want to live in. And this is a continuous process, a pattern of consistently questioning the validity of your beliefs and actively choosing the beliefs that empower you and that create a more positive experience. Imagine you are about to try something new, something that takes you out of your comfort zone, and you start to think, "I can't do this. I am going to fail." This is a great opportunity to put your new skill into action. You can pause, observe that thought, question its validity, trace its origin, and choose to replace it with the empowering belief that "I am capable, and even if I fail, I will learn and grow." This simple act, this choice of a new belief, can completely change the outcome. It can shift your entire experience and help you step into your power. You are now in control of the code, and you are actively shaping your experience and changing your matrix. And this understanding is transformative because it shows that your beliefs are not fixed. They are not permanent, but they are simply choices you make, and they are choices you can change in any moment. You are in complete control of your inner world, of your own code, and that control is the most powerful tool you have to actively choose a more positive matrix, a more empowering reality. And the more you practice this skill, the more you understand that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but rather the conscious creator of your own destiny. You are not just the player, but also the programmer and the game designer of your matrix. And so, let's shift perspective one final time. What if you saw yourself not as a victim of your programmed beliefs, but as the conscious programmer of your own mind, the architect of your own inner world? What if you realized that you are in complete control of your own code, and that therefore you are in complete control of the way you experience your matrix? I invite you to reflect on a belief that is currently limiting you, a belief that is holding you back from living your fullest potential. And then, I challenge you to use the steps we just discussed to actively rewrite that belief, to replace it with an empowering one, to take back control of your own code, and to step into the power of a conscious creator. You are the only one who has access to your own code, and you are the only one who can choose to rewrite it, and in that choice lies your freedom. Now, let's take this even further and bring the idea of consciousness as the prime mover into a practical, actionable reality. We've established that your consciousness is the fundamental reality, the driving force behind all experience, the source code that creates the matrix. So, how can you use that understanding to actively shape your experience, to create a reality that is aligned with your intentions, to finally become the master of your own matrix? It all starts by consciously directing your attention with intention. This isn't just wishful thinking. This is a very practical way of creating the life you desire. It's about understanding that your intentions are the fundamental code, and your attention is the force that brings that code to life. To engage with this idea, we can use a very powerful technique. Intentionally directing your consciousness. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and bring your attention to a specific outcome you want to experience. It could be anything from achieving a particular goal to experiencing more joy, more abundance, or a stronger sense of peace. The choice is yours. And once you have a clear picture in your mind, allow yourself to feel the emotions associated with that desired outcome, as if it were already real. Imagine the sensations, the sounds, the sights, and all of the details that bring that outcome to life. By actively engaging your senses and your feelings, you begin to imprint that experience into your consciousness. You are writing the code that will bring that matrix to life. And this act of visualization is a very potent way to direct your consciousness. But to make it even more powerful, combine your visualization with a clear intention, a commitment to take actions that are aligned with that vision. Think about it like creating a map and deciding on a path. The map is the vision, the path is the intention, and as you keep following your path, you will eventually reach your destination. And your feeling are your compass. If you feel inspired, then you are on the right path. If you feel scared, then you have a chance to rewrite your intention and take another path. And you can change paths at any moment. This is the power of intention. This is how you use your consciousness to actively recode your matrix and choose a better experience. And this is not just something you do once, but it's a continuous pattern of intentionally directing your energy and attention towards the experience you want to create. And your feelings are the feedback loop. You can use them to help you make the right choices. Let's say you start visualizing a specific outcome and you feel fear creep in. Use that information as data. That is your code trying to rewrite your matrix. And that is your opportunity to choose a new intention and rewrite that code. The more you are in tune with your feelings, the more you are able to actively direct your consciousness, and the more you become the conscious creator of your reality. You are the designer of your matrix, the writer of your story, and the main character in your own game. The more you do this, the more you realize that your inner world is not separate from your outer world. They are in a constant feedback loop. Your internal code is the source, and your external matrix is the reflection, and this understanding allows you to take a completely new perspective. It's not that you are a passive observer, waiting for things to happen to you, but you are an active participant in the game, shaping your experience with your consciousness, with your intentions, and with your actions. You are the programmer, and you are always free to choose the next line of code. You are the architect of your own reality. And with this understanding, you are free to step into a new perspective. What if you saw yourself, not as a victim of circumstance, but as the conscious creator of your reality, the architect of your own experience? I invite you to take full responsibility for your life, to recognize the power you have to intentionally create a positive reality, to actively choose to direct your attention and energy towards what you desire. This is the most practical path to mastering your own matrix, to recode your own experience, and to finally step into your power. You have always been the one in control. You are now simply choosing to remember this truth. And finally, let's bring all of these ideas together by revisiting the concept of death as a transition, not just as something that happens at the end of your life, but something that you can consciously choose in every moment. We've established that death is not an ending, but simply a shift in perspective, a transition from one level of awareness to another, like waking up from the dream of the Matrix. Now, how can you use this understanding to actively upgrade your life, to consciously let go of what no longer serves you, to step into a new version of yourself, and to consciously choose your next level of experience in the Matrix? It all starts with intention, by actively choosing to die to the old self. To make this more practical, let's explore a specific process. Choose a habit, a pattern of behavior, or an identity that no longer serves you. Maybe you are constantly seeking approval from others. Maybe you are always putting yourself down, or maybe you are holding on to an old story that no longer resonates with you. Once you have chosen this thing you want to release, you can now consciously choose to let go of that old version of yourself, to intentionally die to that old way of being. It's like upgrading your software. You need to uninstall the old program in order to install a new one. It's a powerful image, but it needs to be practical. Write it down, say it aloud. Imagine yourself releasing the hold that this old pattern had over you, and actively choose to step into the new version of yourself. This is your personal reboot, and it is a very powerful tool you can use to create a new experience in the Matrix. And this practice of letting go is a continuous pattern, a process you can engage with every time you experience a transition, a change, or an ending. Each time you chose to let go of the old, you are also choosing to embrace the new. You are creating space for new growth and expansion. You are consciously choosing a new level of experience, a new version of the matrix. This is about moving with the natural flow of change, instead of resisting it, seeing that every ending is a new opportunity to learn, to grow, and to step into a new version of yourself. You are in a constant state of evolution, and your matrix is constantly being updated by your choices. And with this understanding, you begin to recognize that every moment is a new opportunity, that the past does not define you, that you are not limited by your circumstances, but rather you are the master of your own destiny, and you can actively choose to rewrite your code and reboot your matrix in every moment. You are the designer, the programmer, the writer, and the main character in the story of your life. And the more you embody this truth, the more you actively choose new lines of code, the more you step into your power, and the more you create the life that you have always been dreaming of. You are constantly writing the story of your matrix. And so, it's time for a final shift in perspective. What if you saw your life not as a linear path with a definitive end, but as a series of conscious choices, each moment an opportunity to wake up from your limiting beliefs, to die to the old, and to embrace new possibilities? I invite you to see your life as an opportunity to consciously shape your journey, to recode your matrix into something new, something that is more aligned with your purpose and your greatest potential. You have always been in control of your own code, and you can use this power to create any experience you desire. You can wake up in every moment. You can choose a new matrix every moment, and this is your ultimate freedom. So, instead of viewing the death of your old, programmed self as a tragic ending, what if you saw it as a liberating act of self-creation? What if each time you died to a limiting belief, to an old identity, you were actively creating a more aligned, more authentic experience within this matrix? Consider a time when you released a belief that held you back, perhaps a fear of public speaking or a limiting idea about your own capabilities. Do you remember the feeling of freedom that followed, like a weight being lifted off your shoulders? That feeling of liberation is not just a pleasant sensation, it is the feeling of unplugging from the old matrix. It is the direct experience of stepping into your power. It is the awakening that comes from death. It is proof that this process is not a loss, but a liberation, a rebirth into a more authentic version of yourself. And this embrace of change, this willingness to die to the old, is not a one-time event, but rather a pattern of consistent choices, a constant act of choosing to recode your reality. Let's consider a scenario where you find yourself facing an unexpected shift, a sudden change in your circumstances, maybe an unexpected career change or a disruption in your relationships. Now, instead of resisting that change, you can consciously choose to see it as an opportunity for growth, as an invitation to discover new aspects of yourself, as a chance to write new code for your matrix. And in that choice, in that willingness to embrace the unknown, you not only transform the experience, but you also create a positive outcome, showing that your perspective is the true source code. By choosing to see the opportunity, you are changing the matrix itself. This constant recoding, this cycle of death and rebirth, is the key to creating an experience that aligns with your true potential. And what if the fear of death itself was just another illusion, another piece of code designed to keep you limited? Often, the fear of death is simply a fear of losing our identity, of losing the ideas that we cling to, of losing the story we have created of who we are. But by understanding that identity is not a fixed entity, but rather an ever-changing process, we can release that fear and begin to embrace life fully, recognizing that death is just another transition of consciousness, like going to sleep or unplugging from the matrix. And as we let go of our rigid ideas of who we are then able to access the limitless potential of our consciousness, to experience the freedom of being more than the code we have been assigned, to finally begin to write our own code. So, let's shift our perspective one last time. What if you saw each moment not as a continuation of the past, but as a new opportunity to actively reinvent yourself, to choose a new line of code for your matrix, to step into a new experience that is aligned with your true potential? What if you understood that every day is a new opportunity to reboot your life, to create the reality that you truly desire? I encourage you to see each moment as an opportunity to release old patterns, to let go of limiting beliefs, and to choose a new version of yourself, knowing that your power to recode your matrix is always available to you in every single moment. It's a continuous process of creating a conscious choice, and this is the true experience of freedom. Now, as we begin to integrate these insights, let's acknowledge that by understanding the illusion of separateness, by accepting the power of your beliefs, and by recognizing the primacy of your consciousness, you can actively create the reality that you desire. And this is the true meaning of waking up from the matrix. This is the moment when you stop being a passive player in a pre-written game, and you become the architect of your own experience, the writer of your own story. So, how can you practically apply this new understanding? Try this. Take a moment to reflect on a desire you have, something you truly want to experience in your life, a new code you want to write. And then become aware that you already have all the tools to make it a reality. Your consciousness is the most powerful tool you have, and now you know how to use it. And this is where the real fun begins, as you start using these tools to take ownership of your experience, as you actively recode your matrix from a place of intention. Imagine, for example, that you're facing a difficult situation, a conflict with someone, or a problem at work, something that triggers an old pattern. Now, instead of reacting from that old place, you can use all the tools we have discussed to consciously shift your perspective, to actively rewrite the code, to change your experience of the matrix. Perhaps you recognize that you're feeling triggered, and you choose to see the situation from the other person's perspective, to release your old beliefs, to actively choose a more positive outcome. And as you shift your inner world, you will find that the outer world will also shift, showing you that you can create any reality you desire. And this is where you begin to recognize your own power. And what if that true power was simply the understanding of how you are creating your reality, the awareness that you are the architect of your matrix? The matrix isn't something that exists outside of you. It is the direct reflection of your inner state, and this understanding gives you access to the infinite potential of your consciousness. It is like you suddenly realizing that you are inside the software, and that you can now change anything you want, including the nature of the game itself. You now recognize that you are the designer, and you are free to change every line of code. This knowledge, this understanding is the key to unlocking your limitless potential, and the more you embrace this idea, the more you actively step into your power. So let's shift the focus once again and consider what this means in your own life. What if you recognize that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but rather the author of your own story, the creator of your own matrix? What if you understood that by consciously choosing your code, you are choosing your reality, you are choosing your experience? I challenge you to fully step into that power, to take full responsibility for your life, and to begin shaping your matrix with intention, knowing that every choice you make is writing new lines of code. It's time to recognize that you are not just playing the game, but you are also designing the game. Now, let's bring the present moment into the equation, recognizing that living fully in the now is the most direct way to access your true power, to recode your matrix, and to experience life without filters. The present moment is where everything happens. It's where the past and the future merge, and it's the only place where you have any power, and it's the most direct access to changing your code, and therefore your matrix. So, how can you access the power of the present moment? Let's use a very simple exercise. Bring your attention to your breath. Notice the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. Simply focus on this process for a few moments, without judgment, without trying to change anything, and let your breath be your guide, your anchor to the present moment. And just like that, you are actively recoding your experience of the Matrix. And this is not a one-time thing. This practice of consciously choosing to focus on the present moment is a continuous pattern, a way of using the now as a refuge from the mind's constant chatter, from the endless stream of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You can choose to consciously shift your attention to what's happening right now, instead of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. And every time you do that, you are actively creating a space for something new. You are rewriting your code. You are choosing a better experience. This is how you step out of the constant noise of the mind and into the clarity of the present moment. This is how you change your experience of the Matrix. And by truly understanding this idea, you begin to realize that the present moment is where true freedom and peace reside, that the past and the future are nothing but stories, and that by consciously choosing to live fully in the now, you are not only experiencing a more direct connection to reality, you are also choosing to create a more positive experience in your Matrix. And it is here in this space that you begin to glimpse what waking up truly means. It's like seeing the world for the first time, without the filters of your old beliefs, without the noise of your mind. It's like seeing behind the curtain of your Matrix. So, let's shift our focus one last time and see the present moment not as just a fleeting experience, but as the gateway to your awakening, the doorway to a new Matrix. What if you understood that the Matrix is not something that is happening to you, but something that you are creating here and now? I challenge you to make a commitment to consciously experience the present moment in your daily life, to fully engage with all of your senses, to be present, and to remember that this is the key to changing your code and accessing a more direct experience of your Matrix. This is your opportunity to choose freedom. And finally, let's embrace the idea that this journey of awakening is an ongoing exploration, that it is okay to not know all the answers, and that the true power lies in your willingness to continue to recode your Matrix from a place of authenticity and from a place of intention. Waking up is not a destination that you arrive at, but rather a path that you walk on, a constant process of exploration, growth, and expansion. It is the journey itself that is the reward, and this understanding is the key to navigating this constantly shifting Matrix. It's like realizing that the game is not about reaching the end, but about exploring all the possibilities. And this willingness to embrace the unknown, this ability to see uncertainty as an opportunity for growth, this is how you step into infinite possibilities. This is how you recode your Matrix to create a more expansive experience. For example, imagine you are facing a situation where the outcome is not clear, a challenge with no easy answers, a moment when you have no idea what to do next. Now, instead of letting that uncertainty paralyze you, you can see it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to actively choose a new path, to rewrite your code, to reboot your Matrix. Remember, the only constant is change, and it's that constant change that allows you to constantly recreate your experience of reality. And that freedom is the key, because by releasing your need to know everything, you create space for a more profound and authentic experience. You allow life to unfold naturally, and you begin to trust the flow of your own journey. It is like realizing that the rules of the game are not fixed, that you can rewrite them at any time, and that in the freedom of not knowing, you find the true freedom of creation. You realize that you are not just playing the game, you are also the one who is making the rules and designing the levels of your Matrix. And so, let's consider one last perspective shift. What if you saw the unknown, not as something to be feared, but as an invitation for adventure, an opportunity to create something new, to step into infinite possibilities, to intentionally choose your experience of the Matrix? I challenge you to step fully into that unknown, to embrace the mystery of life, to actively choose a new path, to recognize that the constant cycle of death and rebirth is the ultimate sign of your potential, that by choosing to die to the old, you are opening the door to create something new and amazing. So, let's bring it all together. Remember how we started, with this idea that death might not be an ending, but rather an awakening. We've explored how the death of old beliefs, the letting go of programmed identities, is not a loss, but a powerful opportunity to step into a deeper understanding of reality, to begin choosing your experience of the Matrix. We've shown how this death is not a tragic event, but a doorway to liberation, a moment when you begin to write your own code, to create a matrix that aligns with your true potential. Every tool we've explored, from questioning our beliefs to understanding the power of the present moment, has been designed to help you see that this is not just a philosophical idea, but a practical, tangible transformation. And this process of death and rebirth is not a single event, it's a continuous cycle, a pattern of constant choices that you can engage with intentionally. Think back to the red pill metaphor, that choice to wake up. That choice is available to you in every single moment. It is a constant process of choosing to recode your matrix, of actively engaging with reality. We've walked through the cycle of identifying limiting beliefs, understanding their origins, challenging their validity, and then actively choosing a new and more empowering perspective. This cycle is not something you have to passively endure. It is a skill you can learn, and with every cycle you expand your awareness and your ability to create the experience you desire, to consciously choose your matrix. What we've explored together unveils a profound synthesis. The illusion of separateness, where we perceive ourselves as isolated individuals rather than interconnected aspects of the whole. The immense power of our beliefs, capable of shaping our reality into limitations or opportunities. The primacy of consciousness, which makes us the architects of our own experience. And finally, death itself, not as a finality, but a transition to another level of awareness, like waking up from the matrix. These aren't separate ideas. They're interconnected pieces of a puzzle, each revealing a deeper aspect of the truth. They demonstrate that you are not just a player in the game, you are the one who is writing the code and choosing how you experience your matrix. This is a roadmap to liberation, not a complicated concept, but a direct path to self-empowerment. And it's crucial to understand that you are not a passive victim, you are an active participant, a co-creator of your own reality. You are the architect of your matrix. The choice to wake up, to see beyond the illusion, is a personal decision, a step that you must take for yourself. And in that very act of choosing, in that very moment of taking responsibility for your own experience, you are also taking responsibility for your matrix. You are now free to recode it with intention, to consciously shape your journey, and to embrace the freedom that comes from making that choice in every moment. Now, let's place this understanding into a larger perspective and see how this new vision can transform every aspect of our lives. By acknowledging the matrix, and by seeing our own power to shape it, we can transform our approach to challenges and actively create opportunities, knowing that we are the architects of our experience. This is a shift from being a passive observer to being an active creator, a conscious force in the world. This understanding isn't just for personal growth, but also for the collective benefit, for creating a matrix where all beings can flourish. Think about the patterns we've explored, that constant cycle of programming and awakening, and the idea of the loop. By recognizing this loop, we can also choose to break free from it, to recode it. And this understanding is not just a philosophical concept, but a practical tool. Every time you find yourself in an old, limiting pattern, you now have the power to step out of it, to write new code, and to create a new experience. And that freedom, that ability to choose your own experience, is always available to you in the matrix. This understanding allows us to live our lives with intention, awareness, and compassion, knowing that the matrix isn't something happening to us, but something we are actively creating. By living intentionally, we take responsibility for our choices and actively engage in creating positive change in our lives and the world. And we understand that what we focus on expands, and we chose to focus our attention on those things that will contribute to a more harmonious experience. And this isn't just a better way of thinking, it is a new way of being, a new way of choosing, and a new way of engaging with our own matrix. And finally, let's recognize that this shift in perspective is more than simply gathering new information. It's a fundamental transformation in the way we experience reality. It's a movement from a place of limitation and disempowerment to a place of freedom and creation. The matrix is not an external thing that happens to us. It is a mirror that reflects our inner world. And by understanding that connection, we are then able to choose what we see. We are then able to choose our own matrix. We are then able to begin to truly wake up from the dream. This is not a simple intellectual idea. This is a fundamental shift in perception. And this is the foundation for a new way of being in the world. So let's connect all the different threads of our conversation, bringing the pieces together. We've shown how the illusion of separateness, the power of beliefs, the primacy of consciousness, and death as a transition are all connected, all pointing to the idea of awakening, of stepping into your power to shape your matrix. Each concept builds upon the next, all leading to a complete understanding of the central message, a message of empowerment and liberation, a message that shows that all roads lead to waking up. And this journey is a continuous process, a constant cycle of death and rebirth, an opportunity for growth and for recoding your matrix in every single moment. This idea of death is not something to be feared, but rather a powerful metaphor for change, a symbol of transformation. Every time you chose to let go of something old, you are opening the door to something new, and that opportunity is always there for you in every present moment. The matrix is a living experience, and we have the power to change our experience at any time. Perhaps you are still asking yourself, what if death is actually my birth? And the answer is clear. Death represents the release from the old, limiting self, and birth represents the emergence of the new, empowered self. And this is not just a one-time event, this is something that you can do every single day. You now have the tools, you now have the knowledge, you now have the power to change your experience of the matrix. And as we begin to integrate these ideas, let's bring a sense of peace and resolution into the equation. And know that you are not alone in this journey, that there are many others who are actively choosing to wake up, to recode their matrix. And by engaging with these ideas, you are stepping out of the loop of suffering and into a new and more empowered perspective, a place of peace, a place of joy, a place where you recognize your own freedom. And that freedom, that deep understanding that you have all the power to change your experience, is the key to truly understanding the nature of your matrix. Now, as we conclude this exploration, I want to pose a question. What would you create if you truly understood the full extent of your power? What kind of matrix would you choose to live in? And this is not the end of the journey, but rather the beginning. This understanding has the capacity to transform not only your personal experience, but the collective experience, showing that your choices have ripple effects that can reach everyone. And this is more than just a personal transformation, it is a path to a more harmonious world. So I invite you to share your experiences, to comment on the video, to join our community of Matrix, Recoders, and to engage with others who are consciously choosing to create a new way of seeing and being. And this is an opportunity to connect with others, to learn, and to grow, knowing that we are all part of the same matrix, and that our choices matter. And as we continue this journey, I want you to know that there will be future videos that will continue to explore these ideas, that will continue to give you the tools to further empower your journey. And that, as we all continue to choose freedom, we will together change our matrix and create a better world for all.